Welcome back, everybody. An exciting day out at training camp. We're going to talk about the Chiefs news here on a special live stream. I decided to jump on and get after it. Thank you guys for joining. A lot of shock and awe out there today with the announcement this afternoon, just a little bit ago, that Chiefs' new defensive end / defensive tackle, Charles Omenihu, has been suspended for 6 games of this campaign. That means they're going to be without him up until October 13th when the Chiefs play the Broncos. So not exactly what everybody was hoping for. Can't blame you a bit. But I will say this. This is not completely unexpected. We knew that this incident that Charles had prior to signing here in Kansas City was something that was going to come back at him. This was an arrest in January for a domestic violence charge. And I think this is not only the reason why he's suspended clearly, but why his contract was the way that it was, that he was affordable. So this, I thought, was going to come back at somewhere between 2 and 4 games. It may get appealed and get down to that. But right now, you're going to be without Charles Omenihu, a starting defensive tackle / end on this roster, and a guy that they planned to make big news with. Not his favorite thing, I'm sure. Not very happy for the organization as well. But in the end, that's the way that it works out. You can't have it all. And getting a guy like this, who actually has been playing quite well in camp, this is a bit of a blow to what you're trying to do for the season. And there's not much else that I can say beyond that, other than they're going to have to make do. No way around it. That's the way that this league is going to work. And I don't know if that is going to be something that's going to be bothersome in the end, because this group in particular, the defensive line group overall, is very, very thin. Especially with Chris Jones out. They never needed Chris Jones back more than they do now. In order for him to get ready for week 1. Does this mean anything for the preseason? No. But come week 1 and now up through week 6, they need Chris Jones. And I do think this puts a little bit of pressure back on it. But I think that was there anyway. I'm still confident that this is going to get done and Chris Jones will be a Chief this season. I'm not concerned about that. But it does kind of spark a couple of people. Plenty of comments there. Thank you guys for joining. I hope that you are happy today outside of this. I was going to do a stream today about what's going on in camp, a couple of standouts, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But what this means is this puts pressure on a couple of guys. If Jones is out for the preseason, it's going to look a little bit different. If Omenihu and Jones are out for the preseason, it would look different. I do believe that Omenihu's able to practice through camp. I'll have to get the specifics, but it is about week 1. So week 1, if you were to not have Chris Jones or Charles Omenihu, right now, the big concern is that Mike Dana has a calf injury. You want to get him back from that. And how are you going to deploy your alignment? That's going to be the big thing. And Shadow, Sith, I am totally with you. We'll get to your comment here in a minute, because right now, that's not something that can happen. And I'll explain why. But the concept would be that you have to get the young guys to step up, because on pass rush downs, that means that George Karlaftis is going inside to pass rush. It means that you're going to have to pull in Keandre Coburn. You're going to have to hope that Turk Wharton is ready to go by then, and you're going to have to use Daniel Wise right now. It is not a mystery that Daniel Wise has been starting at the 3-tech spot in lieu of Chris Jones here as we've gone through camp. That's going to have to materialize into not something that is just a stopgap temporary measure, but one that can actually produce on the field, because Keandre Coburn's a rookie. And I do think that he has upside in the pass rush game, but I don't think he's there that you can rely on him the first 6 weeks of his pro career. That's going to be tough. But it allows you to get your number 1 draft pick in Felix Anudike-Uzomah onto the field with George Karlaftis. That is a plus. It is likely that Felix will start at that point, depending on Mike Dana's situation. The team does have faith in Mike Dana. They can start him at edge. I do like Felix there. But when you looked at the 4-man, the 3rd-down pass rush package, it looks like it's going to be Felix. It's going to be George inside. It's likely going to be Turk if he's healthy. It could be Wise. It's going to be different than we expect. And here's where the interesting wrinkle comes in is who else could rush the passer? This is an opportunity for B.J. Thompson, because he is a different kind of pass rusher. He is not a guy that can reduce down inside, as we've talked about a lot through the offseason, but he is a guy that can rush off the edge. He has that speed rush ability. He is very, very athletic. And that allows you to get Felix on the field, Karlaftis on the field, and if BJ Thompson were able to go in the short term, if you're missing that many guys, you get a little bit of every kind of rush. Now, as you guys can see, let me pause and just say, please, if you're just seeing me for the first time, I'm Ryan. This is my channel, RGR, Ryan Going Rogue. Please like, sub, hit the bell, become one of us here at Rogue Nation as we follow Chiefs Kingdom around. Always going to break it down for you on the reel, whether it's pretty or not. I'm going to give you the truth as I see it. And the big question, and you can see Shadow Sith was on it. Zach's coming and said the same thing. The question is, and I've hinted at this before, I do think that Carlos Dunlap is in the plan, quote unquote, rough. It has to be done. And Kurt, you nailed it. This is the problem. $856K in available cap space is what the Chiefs sit at right this moment. And that makes things very difficult. Until Chris Jones gets done, you can't afford to sign Carlos. And that's the big problem. Because of his tenure, he will get the veteran minimum, which means you can't pay him right now. So it all hinges back on Chris. Unfortunately for the Chiefs, this puts a little bit more ammo, a little bit more impetus on them coming up to Chris's number because they got to have him. So that's going to be an interesting turn here in the next 48 hours of what that negotiation looks like. When I saw quote unquote breaking news from my sources, I was really hoping that it was Chris coming into the fold and getting ready to be on the field. So let's hope that that comes to fruition here pretty quick. Now I'm going to give you guys a look at the depth chart because I do think we can glean a little bit from there. And I want to show you the back and forth that we are likely to see here in the defensive front in particular. Let me get this up here on the screen and let me zoom it in for you. So this is what it looks like. You're going to have Omenihu out week 1. Right now, you have Chris Jones out week 1. So that's half of your defensive front. If everything goes to plan, it will most likely be Mike Dana moving up and Turk Wharton moving up. But that is, I think, probably not sustainable for a full go. So I don't think Turk's going to give you in week 1 through 6 100% of the snaps. So this is problem. What does mean is that Mike and Tershon might be able to play a game together and come out at 100% of the snaps. That means Felix is going to be on the field quite a bit. It means Keandre is going to get to cycle in as well. And this is where I was getting at. Daniel Wise, he's way back here on the depth chart here at from our friends over at Our Lad. He's really a little bit closer high up. We've seen Malik Herring be getting not only edge snaps, but getting D-tackle snaps as well. He is ahead of Josh Kano, but they've had Josh Kano up with the ones at times in this camp as well. It is, for me, the most intriguing is BJ Thompson because he just is that change of pace pass rusher. He's got the speed. He's got the get off. He has great length. He's an uber athlete. And when they came in, they were trying to see if Omenihu could do some drops, drop to a spot in particular. And that's a great concept. But I think he showed, hey, that's not really his thing. That's not what he's best at. So in the end, I don't think that was going to be a full part of their plan. But with BJ Thompson, you can get some of that. So it gives you a little bit more versatility, I think, if you have to make do by just kind of mixing up what your defensive front's going to be in weeks 1 through 6. Hopefully, it doesn't have to be that bad. And it is a little bit more about Chris Jones. Now, what else could they do? They could stay in the base a little bit more, which means you're going to have Leo and Drew Tranquil right there, able to either blitz or come off the edges, right? I like Willie coming off the edge as well. Willie should start in the base. I think it's going to be a little bit more game plan specific. Tranquil will get more time if it's a passing-based attack that they're expecting, that kind of thing. But they've been experimenting with Leo as a kind of a overhang rusher, much like you saw Reggie Ragland do with a good deal of success. So the concept is there for Steve Spagnuolo, and we know that Joe Cullen can get a lot out of defensive linemen pretty directly. So this may necessitate a little bit more reps of seeing what Leo can do. I still don't like him coming out of a 3-point stance. I don't think he's there yet, but he can rush from a 2-point real easy. So if they split him out and they put him outside of where you think you're going to line him up in a normal D end kind of role, not like a wide 9, like he's truly coming out of space, but I do think he can stand up, give you some pass rush, and kind of sprinkle that in a way that makes them understand that they have to defend him. He was really great at that, particularly in blitzing in the B gap in college. That was one of my favorite aspects for him. He'd mug the A, shoot the B, and then he could actually get some things done. That's going to force offenses to have to take a look at him and understand where he's lining up all the time. The question becomes is how you balance that versus the passing attack. Do you want to be all blitz, all attack all the time, or do you want to do what Spags prefers to do, and that is play coverage? And that's why Drew Tranquil is here. So we're going to start to see here in the next few days what those reps look like, and I think that's going to start to give us an inkling of where they're leaning. I, for one, feel like it's better to attack and not give them an opportunity to get the ball out. Let's go to the source is my thinking. So I do see there's some questions in here. I'll get to you guys in just a minute. I can't really read at the moment while I'm trying to show the board as well. The other thing that I do want to go over is Jalen Watson missed time today. As we understand, it was not an injury-related miss, but it was what I feel could be an opportunity for Nick Jones because Nick had a couple of PBUs against bigger, stronger, taller leapers in particular in MVS, and one against Justin Ross as well. And so when you come away with PBUs because you got more reps with the ones because Jalen had to take a day, that's a nice opportunity. And I like the way that that's coming from. Nick Jones, I thought he was going to flourish because of the ability to compete with Najee Johnson. Now, Najee obviously went out and had that terrible injury, and I do feel terrible for him. But it does feel like however long it lasted that first week of camp, it did affect Nick Jones and pushed him a little bit, and maybe they're going back and forth, so I like that. And it looks like Nick Jones is continuing to play through. He looks more physical. I said this on Locked On Chiefs. You guys can check that out here in a minute. I do like his physical style of play. I think that is going to help him make the leap because right now I like him in this role. Let me zoom this back in so you guys can see it a little bit better. And I'm not sure which way that's going to work best. Right there. Okay, so what you have now is currently today with Najee on the IR, it's going to be McDuffie, Snead, although he's been out for a couple of days with some knee inflammation, and Jalen Watson. With Watson out, Nick Jones got a lot of those reps. So did Joshua Williams. I think we're all comfortable with Joshua Williams having to be a starter. And if he is the starter, then I would think that Nick Jones is probably the next guy up. There could be a sighting for DiCaprio Bootle. There could be Khalif Hailasi. That's a possibility. Eco got some reps today. The K-Stater Boyedo that I do think is a positive sign for him too. I like the fact that they found another guy that they feel they can bring in. Haven't heard much about Lamar Jackson. I do believe Reese Taylor missed today as well, so you can see him down here on the depth chart. Anthony Cook has made a couple of plays, but I don't know if it's enough to get him up there, and really he should be lining up as a safety most of the time. So it's Eco and Nick Jones that I'm really intrigued by. You could put Shamari out at corner if you had to, but it's those two guys that I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to bring here pretty quickly. Now, let's take a couple of your questions and see where we're at. I'm going to go back up to the top. After Shadow, we got a couple. Yeah, that's the thing. It is more leverage for Chris Jones. David Luchanel on the line somewhere. I wouldn't call it on the line, like on the front, but out wide enough that it really looks like an overhang linebacker, almost like a 3-4. And that's something that I think they can do. I talked about it in the offseason. I like the concept of playing a 3-4, but to install a 3-4 now would be very challenging, I would say, because the concepts, unless you're just going to designate a slant, a hole, a gap to attack, I think that's a little bit difficult to shift gears on what your normal philosophy is, just because of a suspension here and obviously with Chris out. What if Joe Kamara got caught on camera and gets 3 games? Yeah, I agree. That was a pretty significant piece as well. It's going to be the domestic violence thing. And I do believe that every player is taking into account what their personal habits are. I don't recall any other further suspensions in the past for Omenihu, but we'll have to go back to that. It is a pretty stark contrast, and I agree with you. Like I said, I expected it to be around 3 for Omenihu, so I'm a little out there. Yep, you got it. You guys are on top of this. Out on the boat catching some RGR. Well, Anthony, I hope you're having a good time. Catch a wave for me if you're wakeboarding. Hit that little twister there. Wrap the rope. I like that one. And David, you're right. Yep, that's exactly where I was going too. And DJ, yeah, I talked about it earlier, but Dunlap is an option, I think, long term, but you can't do it until you get the cap space. That's got to come, I think, right now from Chris. Where do you see Boyado? Perfect, Joseph. I do think he's on the outside of the top 6 right now, but I do think he's pushing in. And if Jalen has to miss any time, I would think he's in there. But right now, let me count it off. With Najee out, for me, it's Snead, McDuffie, Watson, Williams. And then right now, I would say Nick is the 5. So if they're only keeping 5, that's who makes it. Then I would probably push. Boyado got some good looking reps today. Halasi's had some as well, and I think I've heard that until today, because Reese Taylor missed today, but before that he had made a couple of splash plays as well. So I would say right now that Boyado's probably right there at 6 is my guess. Let's see. With Omenihu out 1-6, do you think the Chiefs brought Warden off the PUP list this week? I don't think that's why. Andy is usually really protective of the players. He wouldn't rush somebody back from the PUP list unless they truly felt that he was ready. I think it was a nice coincidence. But as I understand it, Omenihu can still practice through camp. He just can't play in the games. He will be out of the building and suspended from the first day of the first week. So I don't think that has anything to do with why they did it today or brought Turk back. Anthony, I heard Doe was getting first team reps. Yeah, that's exactly what I was hearing too. And I like that. I obviously saw him at K-State. I haven't seen much film, just a couple, but I've got some guys that I trust that are out there. They're telling me that it's looking pretty good. Is Felix ready? And do you see him over underperforming Karlaftis? Right now, he's behind where Karlaftis was. Let's be truthful. Because he missed all of OTAs, he's behind on the learning curve. But I do think that he is right around the same possibilities. 6 to 8 sacks, I think, is in his wheelhouse. If he's pressed into more reps, you got to remember George played, 78%, 82%, somewhere around there of the snaps last year. So he got a really big chunk of the snap count. I don't see Felix getting that. I think especially, well, I would have said till week 6 or 8 before this happened that he wouldn't get on the field much until then, because it would be mostly in a third down capacity as a wide 9, wide 7 type rusher when everybody else had to reduce. But with Omenihu being out this long, he might get more reps early. And so I think maybe he can catch up to that. But I do see him in about the same range. Michael, what do you think about the comparison with Kamara? Yeah, and like I said, that doesn't seem to track for me. I know the league wants to be hard on domestic violence, though. Violence against women is a serious thing across this country, and I know that the league does not want to allow anything to appear as though they're being soft on it. So I think that's part of it. DJ, safety Felix. Oh, okay. Is Felix ready? Did you see him? Okay. I got it. Yeah, you just retyped it. Okay, no big deal. So that said, a couple of other little notes. Clyde got all the one work today. I think that's interesting. After Prince doing a lot of good things, they clearly want to give Clyde his due as well. And I think right now, with Pacheco out, they're going to make sure that they have enough guys that can get in there and keep the run game moving, keep the pass game moving. I also thought it was telling that Clyde went out of his way today in what is one of, I won't say few, but he doesn't get as many media opportunities as he used to. It was an opportunity for him today to put out the message to the rest of the league. Hey, I trained to do everything, to run between the tackles, to catch out of the backfield, and to catch out of split out. So like he's really putting out the fact that he is an all-around back, because what I felt might have been trade possibilities this preseason with Pacheco on the bench, I think maybe that's gone away. But later in the year, and certainly next year in free agency, he knows he's probably not going to be back unless there's some catastrophic injury to someone. I do think that he's starting to advertise for other teams. That's what it felt like to me today. David threw in a question here. It just seems like we're built for a 3-4 with the linebacker core. I understand that it would be different from the past, but what would you do in this situation? Well, like I talked about in the offseason, especially through OTAs and everything, I would have sprinkled in some 3-4 looks already, because I like that concept. I think you can get pass rush out of the nose tackle in Coburn, but I see that more as like a next year thing than a this year thing. But certainly when they signed Drew Tranquil, who's been a Mike, it screams to me that you want to get your best athletes on the field. And with Chris Jones out, with Omenihu out, your best athletes are now at linebacker, your most sure things. So I would love to see Leo at one outside and Willie at the other, with both Tranquil and Nick in the middle. But that puts 4 of your 5 linebackers that are likely to be on this roster on the field at once. That means you don't have much room for error injury-wise. So we might have to see something else come around if we think that's going to happen. But that's Joe Cullen's bread and butter. And I do think, depending on alignment, and we know Spags wants to go to the 3 safety look dime, you might be able to get away with that as a nickel backer with your Tranquil. But that's the thing, is like, you can't just split it coverage versus front. Otherwise, Joe Cullen would already be running a 3-4, I'm pretty sure. Because you have to have that overlap in the middle between the drop down safeties, the third safety, and the nickel linebacker and Tranquil. Like, you have to be able to move that around. So it would be a significant shift if that's what they decided to do, but I would like to see it sprinkled in some, because I think that's the wave of the future for this team. Does this lower his cap number for the year by? No, it does not. His cap number remains the same. He will be paying fines. He will not be getting game checks. No, maybe I'm wrong there. Let me back that up. We're going to have to ask Chris, because you're right. He won't be getting game checks, but I don't know if that reduces his number or if the league is going to take those as fines. I want to say that that's the way that it does, but I'm not 100%. We'll check, and Chris will have that update for us on Monday on Locked On Chiefs, so check that out. Ben, hope you're good. I'm worried about the D-line. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking too. Need Carlos. Yeah, I'm sure they've got him on speed dial. They just got to get the cap room to do it. Thanks, David. Appreciate it. And hey, and Mark does too. Let's see. Yeah, it does put the impetus there. So Tyreek, with his history, will get 8 games. Good. Yeah. Hey. Yeah, we're going to see. Punching a dude in the face in a marina doesn't generally get you much amnesty from the league, but you never know with this league. So we're just going to have to play it by ear. But in the meantime, what else can they do? What else can Spags look at? I do want to keep in mind, watch what happens in practice here in the first preseason game with the Blitz package. Watch which DBs are coming, because that's the one thing that Spags loves to do, that he can dial up a little bit in order to get past, not just pass rush, but true pressure, is by sending guys. Jamar Connor is his new shiny toy that he's going to blitz all over the place. I don't think they're going to use Brian Cook as much, because I think they want him at the back of the defense predominantly. So it's going to be Mike Edwards and Jamar Connor. Who can you send? It's going to be which nickel. Is it Trent McDuffie, who I think is learning to get his pass rush down a little bit more on the nickel blitz, who's been playing a ton of nickel, or do you switch it up to Nick Jones? Because I know Nick Jones can blitz, and I know he can play the nickel. So we're going to have to see how they align. McDuffie's been getting most, if not, I can't say all, but he's getting the majority of the nickel snaps in camp, at least as far as I understand through today. So that's going to be a question to see, is how they choose to align, and if that allows them to get more aggressive with this blitz package in lieu of the defensive front. Let's see. Last question, and then we'll wrap it up here, guys, because I got to get back to work. Why do you always get players that come with baggage? Because Andy Reid is a second chance guy. He believes that if you bring a guy that's had some trouble in the past into this locker room with this quarterback and this head coach and this culture, that you're going to be able to gear him down and keep him on the straight and narrow so that he can play for you. And let's be frank, a lot of the guys that have some of that off the field baggage are also highly elite athletes. That's what they're looking for. So I think that is how it's going. So with that, I'm going to go try to finish up my week so that I can get away. I hope you guys have a good weekend. I'll give you a little bit something if anything breaks tomorrow, and a little bit wrap up on the practice. We'll see when Dan can get back, and then we'll be with you Sunday night and Monday night live. So be here for those. Oh, and I do have a question for you. For those of you that are serious, and I know all you guys are because you're here, if you're not subbed already, do that. But would you like to see another live stream during this season on either Thursday night before the Thursday night game, which I think is a little bit iffy, or a Friday night game plan type prep live stream? I know live streams are what everybody's looking for right now. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, not the live chat, but put them in the comments for me. Okay. You guys have a great one, and I'll be back with you tomorrow, and we'll let you know what goes on. And if we get any more detail, we'll let you know then. Take care.